Senator Rasenhofer.
Thank you for your comments, Senator, and your questions, Senator Kruger. Let me just say a couple of things about this. Number one, this bill has nothing to do with anybody going to jail. Number two, this has nothing to do with a warrant ever being issued because it's not provided for in the bill. And finally, this has nothing to do with a criminal record because there is no criminal record as a result of this violation of the Alcoholic Beverage and Control Law. What this bill simply does, and we talk about young people and where their future lies, this really has to do with young people disrespecting the court. So you've been given a citation by law enforcement which says that you're consuming alcohol or you have alcohol with the intent to consume it. And, very often the people that are arrested are just, drunk, as drunk as can be because they've been partying at a park or they're at a concert. So they're given a citation. They're not taken to jail. And what the young person is doing in some of these circumstances is saying to the court or law enforcement, well, I know you can't do anything, so too bad. Or they do come to court and the judge says, well, here you are, you drank, 18 cans of beer, you might have a problem, let's go get an evaluation. And the person says, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't care. You can't do anything to me if I don't. So this really is intended to make sure that the young person realizes that you have to respect the law that we've all passed, that is the law of the state of New York, and actually is more helpful because if the young person gets the impression that for this offense that they don't have to show up in court or they don't have to get their evaluation or they don't have to do their community service or they don't have to pay their $50 fine, if that, that then breeds in the young person a contempt and disrespect for law. And, as they get older or, as they move on in their life, they may feel that, well, because nothing happened to me the last time, I just didn't show up in court, or I just didn't abide by the judge's instructions to get an evaluation. I think it's more damaging down the road. So it really is a balancing act. I certainly respect, your position on the issue, but I think when you do the balancing test, if you're, I don't want to imply that you're not concerned about young people, but from my perspective, if you're really trying to change behaviors and you're really trying to help these kids, you'll let them know that if you do get a citation because, you're at the concert and you've been drinking or you're hanging out in the park and you've been drinking, that, really, this really means something that you do have to show up in court. You don't want to create the image in a young person that, okay, no one can do anything to me, so I don't have to obey the speed limit, or I don't have to abide by the red light. Whatever the case may be, those are just two examples. So I think on balance, this is more helpful. It's teaching a valuable lesson. The original, fine that's imposed for this statute is $50. And, we have all, we've had on our books for ages the most minor criminal offense, which is not a criminal offense, is a violation under our penal code. The maximum fine there is $250, 5 times what the penalty is here. So when you're talking about comparing a $50 fine with what we have under every other single violation under our penal code of $250, this is really a, relatively very minor. And I think the life lesson that we're trying to teach somebody for respect for the law certainly outweighs some of the concerns that have been expressed. So again, I thank you for your comments. I know that 59 other members in this House voted for it last year. I think it was a good bill then. I believe it's a good bill now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Wishing to be heard? Seeing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell.
Roll.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act to take effect on the 90th day.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 253, those recorded in negative are Senators Comrie, DeLon, Espaillat, Hamilton, Hassel-Thompson, Hoylman, Kruger, Montgomery, Parker, Peralta, Persaud, Rivera, and Sanders. Ayes 47, nays 13.
The bill has passed. Senator DeFrancisco.
Now can we go back to motions and resolutions and take up previously adopted resolution 4316 by Senator Flanagan and read the title only and then recognize Senator Flanagan.
Secretary will read.
Legislative Resolution number 4316 by Senator Flanagan, honoring St. Patrick and all persons of Irish descent upon the occasion of the 2016 celebration of St. Patrick's Day on Thursday, March 17, 2016.
Senator Flanagan. Some order in the House, please. Senator Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I feel obligated. You know, Murph, I know you're up there as Mr. President, but nice to see you presiding today on what we might consider a holy day of obligation in many respects. But I'd like to, Parker, come on, you got to work with me here, all right? Everyone wants to be Irish on St. Paddy's Day. And frankly, some of us want to be Irish the other 364 days of the year. But let me just fundamentally offer everyone a great day. We are on the cusp of coming into probably a beautiful spring, doing our budgetary work. So happy St. Paddy's Day to everybody. But I want to digress with a point that I hope is valid. In the last 2 days, I, like everybody else, got visited from some of the messengers who work with us, and Billy Crow, who is a dapper guy. He always has these funky outfits on when he's parading around the LOB in the Capitol. He's one of many of the messengers. So Billy had left me a poem, a limerick for today, and so I'm just going to take a moment. They're not here, but you all know this. They're great people. So I'm just going to read off quickly. Beth and Kevin run the messenger service, but we have Brian Abreu, Greta Amadio, a gentleman named Ryan Banker, who's an apprentice, Beth Bonesteel, Michael Cohen, Nancy Comley, Billy Crow, Michelle Daly, Adam Denneberg, Robert DiCiano, William Faulkner, Sharon Facutis, Marcus Gagnon, William Gerard, Catherine Griffin, Kevin Cather, Kimmy Lapp, Barbara McDonald, Kathy O'Brien, Patrick O'Hara. There's a lot of Irish people working in the messenger service. No correlation today, but they're all there. Khadisha Oliver, Frankie Rotundo, Kathleen Schleich, Gil Semaramo, who's also an apprentice, Barb, I got to make sure I'm saying it right, Wajitowicz, and Valerie Zay. So these are the people who are always walking around with a smile. I saw at least half dozen of them this morning, all dressed in all kinds of green for St. Patrick's Day. So in the course of what we do in honoring St. Patrick and those type of events, let's just make sure we remind ourselves of the people who do great things for us, and that's our messenger service. Mr. President, thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Senator Flanagan. Senator DeFrancisco.
This is a wonderful day. We got Majority Leader Flanagan. We got Murphy presiding. But this green cover is above and beyond the Call of Duty. I mean, this is
good.
This is really over the top. But I just wanted to mention that we're here honoring a man, St. Patrick, and if I could find the resolution, it's a long resolution. It just has this slight reference that I need to provide some explanation for. Whereas a native of Roman Britain, Patrick was the son of Calpurnius, a civil servant and deacon. It forgot to say that Calpurnius and St. Patrick were Italian. So if we're honoring a person here of Italian descent, this cover should have been red. And
Mr.
so
President, point of personal privilege.
I won't seek to amend this resolution, but I got a feeling that next year we'll have a similar one, and I would request bill drafting to make sure that that is pointed out clearly in the first paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I, too, want to wish you and all of our colleagues and staff, friends and family, and the respective communities that we all represent a happy and glorious St. Patrick's Day. This is truly a great day. If you could give me just a moment to indulge on a little bit of history as we stand here today on the floor of this great institution, the New York State Senate. I want to talk a little bit about the unique relationship between our great state, between our great nation, and the country of Ireland that St. Patrick had such an extraordinary influence on. And, you know, we celebrate today, and, you know, we wear our green, and some of us wish they were wearing their green. I will tell you that that reminds me of a little bit of an old story, that there are those that are Irish and those that wish they were Irish. You know, the unique relationship between our country and Ireland goes back hundreds of years, but I want to talk before that. It started with a great oppression by the English government for about 700 years, resulting in uprisings over the years, clans working together to fight against this oppression in Ireland. At one point in time, the English controlled about a quarter of the landmass in the entire globe. Fast forward to about 160 plus years ago, the result was the famine, or otherwise known as the Great Hunger, Angora More, where there were 1 million people who starved to death in the country of Ireland. 1 million more stayed, but 1 million emigrated. They left the country of Ireland between 1845 and 1852 to find a better life for themselves and their families and future generations. And where did they come? They came right here to the United States of America. They came right here to the great state of New York. And what happened then? As a third of the population that they left behind was wiped out in Ireland, they settled in New York City and other areas across the eastern coast and up into Canada. And the oppression continued here. much like we're dealing with the immigration issues today at the state and national level. There were immigration issues then. The oppression continued. There were signs that were put up that said no Irish need apply. Being Catholic, being Irish, being unable to speak the language was very difficult to find peace, to find a job, to better one's family. But amid this oppression in this newfound life, there was also an incredible opportunity. And with this newfound opportunity, with newfound freedoms that the Irish were never able to have in their native land, they got involved in politics. They got involved in government and the community. The Irish began to take root right here in the great state of New York. As the Irish poured off the ships, often referred to as coffin ships, because those that were starving by the time they got to this new land of opportunity, they were dead and diseased. But as they poured off the ships, many joined the Union Army or were drafted into the Union Army. 140,000 Union troops fought for this great country and for the liberation of the Union and for the emancipation of the slaves. 150 years ago, this year, the sesquicentennial will be celebrating this June of the Fenian Raid of Canada, where the Irish Civil War vets invaded Canada to hold it hostage until England got out of Ireland. That happened on the shores of my hometown of Buffalo. It resulted a year later of Canada becoming a commonwealth from England. 100 years ago, this April, the proclamation of Irish independence happened. It'll be celebrated across the pond in Ireland, in Dublin City, the day after Easter, Easter Monday, the uprising that ultimately resulted in a true Irish independence. These were only able to be accomplished because of the unique relationship between the United States, the great state of New York, and the country of Ireland. The Irish brothers and sisters that were here, that left the desperation in Ireland to come here and then maintained relationships with their native land. Today, 30 million plus Irish call the United States of America home in every walk of life. Over 150 years ago in this great state, they built the Erie Canal that began the commerce across this state and across this nation, the greatest feat of its time. They used government as an opportunity to better themselves and their family, becoming firefighters and police officers, ultimately resulting in being a part of the government, becoming business leaders, and then in every single walk of life have enjoyed great success in this great land of the United States of America. The Irish helped to shape New York State. The Irish helped to shape this great nation. Whether we're talking about a relationship between the Irish 150 plus years ago, between freed slaves like Frederick Douglass, who lived in this great state, who worked with the liberator and emancipator in Ireland, Daniel O'Connell, to bring peace and justice across Ireland and across the USA. We have to remember where we've come from. It's incumbent upon us Irish on this great occasion of St. Patrick's Day to remember our history. But being Irish isn't just wearing green today, celebrating and partaking in some libations, although that's a big part of it. We remember to honor our family and our friends, care for our community, trust in our faith, believe in the divine intervention of God, ensuring that the greatest nation in the history of the world, the United States of America, continues to work closely to bring peace to our native country of Ireland and other countries across the globe. It's about hard work, dedication, and focus. And I will just say this, over the course of the last several decades, there has been terrible conflict in Ireland from the results of that great oppression that I spoke of, the troubles in the 60s through the 90s, the hunger strikers of 1981, the casualties of thousands of individuals across the pond, the 1998 Good Friday Peace Agreement, cultivated by United States leaders working in concert with Irish leaders, and now the President of the United States, every single year, inviting the Prime Minister and President of Ireland over to this great nation to celebrate. 2 days ago, we had the Irish Minister of Defense, Paul Kehoe, here in Albany to celebrate. We had other leaders like Barbara Jones, the Consul General of Ireland, here to celebrate this great occasion. March 17th represents so much. Yes, as the majority leader, John Flanagan, mentioned, it is a holy day of obligation in our lives. It's great to see the incredible history of Ireland and the United States and its culmination in great leadership here in the state of New York and across the United States. And we must continue that trend. We must never forget where we've come from. We must always think about where we are and where we're going. We must always remember the millions that sacrificed so much to allow people like us, people like myself, to stand here on the floor of the New York State Senate and speak about these freedoms that we hold so dear in our hearts, in our minds, and in society. And I will leave you all with this. It's an Irish proverb, a little bit of an Irish prayer. And I extend that prayer especially to my Republican colleagues, but to all of us. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. And may you be in heaven a half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. Thank you, Mr. President. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Well put. Senator Hoylman.
I join my colleagues in celebrating today and thanking Senator Flanagan for his resolution on St. Patrick's Day. You know, today also is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York City. It's the 255th parade, and it kicked off at 11 a.m. It goes through part of my district along 5th Avenue. It goes all the way up to 79th Street, just past St. Patrick's Cathedral. 35 blocks. Over 2 million spectators are watching it. But today is special. It's a historic day for the parade. It's a unifying day for the parade, and it's an important day, not just for Irish men and women, but for anyone who values self-determination and self-expression. Because for the first time, people who are LGBT will be able to march in the parade and carry banners celebrating their identity. You know, for years, Mr. President, organizers said that LGBT folks couldn't carry signs or banners or identify themselves for who they are. You know, as Senator Kennedy mentioned, there are those who are Irish and those who wish they were Irish. In this case, there are those who are Irish and wish they could march in the parade. And that led, Mr. President, to decades of protests, to court cases, to lawsuits, to boycotts by everyone from Mayor Dinkins to Governor Cuomo to Mayor de Blasio, to arrests, countless arrests by activists in the LGBT community, including my predecessor, a great Irishman, Senator Tom Duane, The Speaker of the City Council, Christine Quinn, was arrested numerous times, and countless other activists. But for the first year in its 255 years of existence, since 1762, LGBT activists who have been campaigning for inclusion for over a quarter century will be able to march carrying their own banner. And I wanted to thank Mr. President, Mayor de Blasio, for his steadfast support of the activists, the Irish Consul General Barbara Jones, who actually helped negotiate the agreement with the Ancient Order of Hibernians, allowing the Irish LGBT folks to march. Our New York City Council members, particularly Danny Drum and Jimmy Van Bramer, who participated in those discussions, and Brendan Fay. I know my colleagues from Queens know Brendan. He's the founder of the Lavender and Green Alliance and co-chair of St. Pat's for All. St. Pat's for All held its own inclusionary march since 2000 in Queens, and I know a number of my colleagues in Queens marched with Brendan and his colleagues, including Kathleen Walsh Darcy, who is the co-chair of St. Pat's for All. And I wanted to thank Dr. John Leahy. He's the chair of the St. Patrick's Day Parade Board, and John O'Connor, president of the St. Patrick's Day Parade Board. You know, today is a very, very significant day, and we also have to thank the people of Ireland, because just last year, like this chamber did in 2011, they legalized marriage equality, and they did it in a referendum, the first time in world history that an entire population voted in support of marriage equality, and that's due to the people of Ireland, and they set the precedent, I think, for this parade, as this chamber did in approving marriage equality in 2011. So when Senator George Mitchell, who negotiated the Good Friday Agreement, is being honored today as the Grand Marshal, we should also thank all the organizers and all the activists for the work they've put in to make this St. Patrick's Day parade truly special, truly historic. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Holyman. We got Senator Savino.
Senator Murphy, I also want to rise and thank Senator Flanagan for bringing this resolution today in honor of St. Patrick's Day, and I want to thank my colleagues for their presentations. You know, they say those of us who are of Irish descent have the gift of the blarney, and if any of you are paying attention today, you would certainly agree with that, Senator Kennedy. Thank you for that history lesson. And Senator DeFrancisco, he raised the point about St. Patrick's heritage himself. In fact, whether he might possibly be Italian. Well, the history books suggest he might have been Roman, and his history dates back to a time prior to Italy even being existing. However, he might have started a tradition that eventually did play itself out on the shores of a country no one knew existed at that time, when the sons of Italy would join in neighborhoods that were populated by the daughters of Ireland, find their mates, marry, and create an entire new population of children that looked like me. The children of the Italian and Irish immigrants are part of the new fabric of New York. And while every day you see people who look like me, you never really know who we are. I'm as Irish as I am Italian and proud of it. And so today, on St. Patrick's Day, I am happy to join all of you and wish all of you a happy St. Patrick's Day, not just today, but every day of the year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Savino. Senator DeFrancisco.
I assume that there are no further speakers. If that's the case, is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
That being the case, I will now move to adjourn until Monday, March 21st at 3 p.m., intervening days being legislative days.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco. I'd just like to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, get home safe, and God bless. Senator Lanza, congratulations to your son for winning the state championship and his basketball team. There will be no further business. I move to adjourn until Monday, March 21st at 3 p.m. Intervening days will be legislative days.